Hello, this is Anton with another episode of Out and Up, where we encourage young athletes to achieve their very best outside of the game. And like every show, we're blessed to have another awesome guest, and y'all know how I do. I'm gonna go ahead and let her introduce herself.
Hi, all. My name is Marissa Flagg, and I am currently the Director of Player Relations and Athlete Experience at Overtime.
Thank you, Marissa, for joining us. You ready to get into the questions?
I'm ready.
Like every show, we always like to give our guests, because I believe to this point, every one of my guests, even when I didn't know before interviewing, all of my guests have played sports at some point or another. So we're going to start from your history in sports, and then we're going to lead in to your current position. You good with that?
Sounds good to me.
All right. When did you first get involved in sports?
So I started playing basketball when I was in fourth grade. But prior to playing basketball, I had ran track, played softball. I was just athletic. I have brothers, so I was always into something. But my love for basketball started when I was in fourth grade.
That's awesome. And so I want to ask this. I normally ask it first, but I'm going to go ahead and ask, where are you originally from, born and raised?
I am originally from Queens, New York. So I am born and raised, but I lived in Jersey for a long stint of time for about 10 years.
All right, cool. So as you played throughout your youth, did you have a favorite sport that you enjoyed more than others?
You know what? It wasn't until high school where I really had to find what path I wanted to go down because I really did enjoy running track. I was good. I ran at Colgate, at Madison Square Garden, when I was younger. I was at track meets every weekend, excelling. And then I was doing well in playing basketball as well. So it was one of those where I knew that I wouldn't be able to juggle both as basketball got more serious and obtainable, where I saw that I would probably get a scholarship sooner or later. I kind of went down the road to say, hey, I'm just going to solely play basketball.
All right. So as a basketball player, knowing that you're from Queens, it takes me back home to Jersey because it's a little different here in the South. I mean, of course, the young people get to play at some gyms, and there's some outside courts, not many, not like back home. What was that like? Did you do a lot of outside basketball? Is that where you received your training from?
Oh, tell me about it. My mom had to come looking for me. Like I was that kid that didn't listen when they say when the street lights come on, make sure you're inside. Like I was still outside playing basketball. I was in different boroughs playing. One night I'm in Brooklyn, one day I'm in the Bronx. Like I'm home in a different
Wow.
part from where I live. So I was that kid that was all over and just wanted to play.
That's good. That's good. So in your youth, was it right away that you had a desire to play beyond just high school, or that did that kind of develop as you went through high school?
It definitely developed as I went through high school. I think, just growing up in New York, Queens specifically, I didn't really see many people that looked like me, that were going on to college. Like, I didn't even know a lot of girls that played basketball, honestly. Like, I grew up playing with the boys in the beginning, and it wasn't until I got to middle school where I was like organized like girls basketball in a sense. So for me, it was honestly like getting that knowledge from mentors and people at the rec centers to know that like receiving a scholarship was obtainable, but also too that I had to put in the work, that it wasn't going to come easy, and that those opportunities come far and few for our inner city kids, that aren't really exposed to like I guess college atmospheres like maybe in
Got
some other states.
got you. So did you have? I know you said in Queens you didn't really have other female players there, but were there some basketball players that you kind of watched their game or looked up to in your youth?
Oh yeah, definitely. Like I was going to WNBA games as a kid. Like, I looked up to like the Dawn Staleys of the world. My favorite player growing up was Kim Perrott. Rest in peace. She had passed away. But like I just loved like their aggression as point guards. Like I loved their leadership. Like it just reminded me of myself. Like I felt like my game kind of modeled theirs as well too.
Wow.
So it was something for me, like, being young, not knowing what my future would hold, but I knew that like it was out there and that it was obtainable, if I took the correct steps.
All right. So in your youth and playing basketball, did you play some just rec center? Did you play some travel ball? What was some of the different outlets that you played on?
So I played locally in like all the tournaments in New York City, and then I played AAU as well too. Now, granted, AAU back then isn't as big as it is now, but we definitely went to like Florida Nationals at Disney World. We went to the championship, honestly, 2 years back to back, which was amazing. When I was in middle school. Also too, just playing in like the Sprite tournaments and at the rec center when they were like having the age groups tournament. So just little things like that. Like I said, anywhere that there was a court or a tournament, I was trying to play.
All right. I always love to ask my basketball or athletes that come on and play, whether it's club soccer or travel football or basketball, how important is it for the young athlete who wants to play at a high level to get involved in those travel sports versus just playing maybe for a rec center or for their school team? How important is it for them to get involved in it?
I think it's extremely important, especially currently where exposure is key. I think that, the more that people are able to see you on this platform, and you're playing at such a high level that it's only going to turn into something great. And, I tell people all the time, it doesn't matter what level you play, right? Like if you enjoy playing basketball and it's something that you love and you dedicate your time and your hard work to, like whatever level that you are, like it's going to be rewarding to you because you put in the work. So I think like for youth or anyone trying to obtain these goals, whether it be out of college or high school or younger, just kind of focus on like the core development of your game, and then everything else will come.
That's good. That's good. So in high school, when did you start your recruiting process? Or when did you start really knowing that, okay, I'm gonna be able to play on the next level? When did that start for you?
Ninth grade, like right out the gate. Like I knew
Okay.
by the time I hit middle school that like this was a thing. And
Okay.
when I got to high school, just my freshman year, like I won freshman of the year in the PSAL. Like, I was hitting the ground running. Like I knew that college was in my end goal. I just didn't know where, what level, but I knew that I was going to college and I was gonna go play basketball and I was gonna get a scholarship and my parents didn't have to pay for anything.
All right, that's good. So how did the recruiting process go for you? What were some of the schools? We'll talk about where you end up going, but what were some of the schools that you were looking at going to extend your career?
I looked at a lot of like MAC schools. I looked at a lot of A10 schools, couple Big East schools. I knew I didn't want to go too far. Like I was such a homebody. Like I was a New York girl, and I always wanted my friends and my family to make sure that they were able to come to games. But those three conferences were really my focus, and also too like just learning like what a fit looked like what school could you go to, and you honestly can play a little bit earlier than other schools, and really doing your research roster wise, like is this obtainable? Will I have to sit maybe my freshman year and I'll get to have that opportunity to play more minutes my sophomore year, or am I waiting 2 years? Like just all of those things I really took into consideration. Like I really did my homework in the recruiting process. The only thing I would say I wish I knew a little bit more was like the eligibility side of things, like academically, what I needed to do, like to qualify, and PSATs and things of that nature, and SATs, like all of those things. I wish I had a little bit more knowledge, but I don't regret it for the world. Like it turned out great because I wound up going Division 1.
Awesome, awesome. So is it a big difference today in what you were able to kind of look at to make your decision and what young players should be looking at today and finalizing their decision?
Oh, I think it's totally different. I think the scope of basketball has changed drastically from when I graduated in 2006. I think NIL plays a huge role. I think just honestly, like the high level basketball, like I think it's way more high level basketball going on as we see the world is evolving, and women's sports is growing rapidly with like Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese. I just think the dynamic has changed drastically. So I would say ultimately, like when you're doing your homework now, might be a little bit different from when I was like in my recruitment process.
All right. So what were some of your highlights before we get on to what school you end up going to? What were some of your highlights in high school?
I was always first team all city. I won borough accolades, scoring at my high school, like top 5, I believe. Assists. And just honestly winning like AAU accomplishments as well too, whether it be tournaments or local tournaments that my AAU team we had won. I think we built some rivals over the years, which was great basketball. But ultimately just being in New York City and being amongst other top players, I feel like I always played up. Like if I was the ninth grader, I was always playing with like the 11th or 12th grade division. So I think that helped me a lot as well too, not only from like a basketball standpoint, but like my IQ, my maturity, and honestly just knowing that like ultimately that's what it would be like in college, and I felt like I was prepared.
That's good. That's good. So you make your final decision and you end up going to school where we're at.
I went to Iona College.
Okay. All right. And what was that experience like for you?
Oh, it was the best 4 years of my life. Like I've met some of my closest friends in college. I had a great career, traveling, just honestly playing basketball at a high level, getting to championship games in the MAC, making a WNIT a couple of years in a row, just experiencing different type of games, different type of settings. It was just like a great 4 years. Ultimately, my head coach, Tony Vizella, wound up hiring me down the line, which was great. So I always say, like, make sure you are intentional in your relationships while you're in school. Go above and beyond, and not only on the basketball floor, but outside of basketball as well, too. And that's either like on your campus or on a club that is there at school, or anybody that's willing to volunteer for things. I was like in the SAC program for the student athletes, things that I probably never would have thought that I ever would have been able to do, but someone saw something in me that sparked the light, and then I just took full advantage of it.
Right. So you touched on it. We're going to get into how that relationship with that coach end up benefiting you down the road. But I just want to touch on, I've had the opportunities to talk with other guests. Even having a son of my own, my son just started as a grad assistant for the school that he just finished playing football for back in Pennsylvania. But I talked about it with him and have talked with other guests. How important is it to be coachable and talk to the young people on how that benefits you for having opportunities like that. Me and him talked about it, and other people have talked about how your attitude will sometimes a good attitude will open up doors for you down the road. So if you could touch on that a little bit for me.
Oh, definitely. A great attitude will definitely open doors down the road. Easier said than done, because if I knew then what I knew now, I would have done a lot of things different. But I think I did things the right way. And I think that's always something that I always lead with. Regardless of my ups and downs, because who doesn't have freshman ups and downs? My coach saw something in me that, probably didn't see in myself at the time, but that's what 4 years of college is about. It's about growth. It's about getting better. It's about learning, being receptive, and being coachable, honestly. And I think sometimes coming from high school to college, you're not always as coachable, because most of the time, whether you're excelling at your high school, you might be the best player on your team. So you don't get disciplined like everyone else, or, you're not viewed the same way as the 10th person on the bench versus the first person on the bench. So honestly, that adjustment from high school to college definitely took me a while, but I got it mid-year. And then after that, I hit the ground running and I was good to go.
That's good. That's good. So, as you go on through Iona, what was your plans when your college career was over? Did you start developing plans on what you wanted to do post your career at Iona?
I think I developed those plans a little bit late. I think because I was so focused on basketball, and being social on campus, like I didn't think career wise. I knew what I wanted to do. I knew what I liked. And I knew that something good would come out of what I liked, because I was a hard worker. I was passionate. And I was a people person. Like I knew that something good would come out of that. But also too, in the same breath, I think I could have focused a little bit more on a skill or a company or a direction that I really wanted to go on post graduation. And I knew what field I wanted to be in. So I knew like that was a start. I honestly didn't think I was going to go to grad school either. And I wound up obtaining that as well too, which
That's
also
awesome.
gave me more time to figure out what I wanted to do. And I think like society may tell you like you have to have it all figured out. And that's not the case, not for everybody. I think
Right.
everybody's road to
Right.
success is different. And as long as you're not comparing yourself to other people, like you'll figure it out. And whether that takes that 4 years in college or an extra 2 years, like for me, those 2 years were definitely beneficial for me to really figure out and get on this path of what I really wanted to do and how was I going to apply my school degree to something in a field that I felt like I can excel in.
That's good. That's good. And I appreciate you sharing that. Again, a conversation I have quite often. And I appreciate you being transparent because so many young people, that's kind of where they hit the wall because when they don't have it figured out, they think it's the worst.
Correct.
Like, oh my God, like I don't know what I'm gonna do with the rest of my life. And there's so many athletes that have talked about they were not sure and they had to take that moment to figure out what was next. And so I think it's good just for them to be able to hear awesome people like yourself that have been able to go on and do awesome things that there was a moment that you had to still figure it out. And so I want to ask real quick before we finish up at Iona, your time at Iona, what you did next after Iona. If you can talk to, or when you get opportunities to talk to young athletes, what are some things that you did, maybe adversity you overcame, or some things that you did that you wish you had did different, that you talk to them about to help them in making better decisions as they're going through life and their career?
I would definitely say like don't cheat the grind. Like really work. Like when you work, I promise you you'll see results. And ultimately, I think that I had to learn that through trial and error. I think that, things didn't always come easy. And I just learned that, I had to get over the hump. Somehow, some way I was gonna get over the hump. But that came with like discipline, that came with understanding the setting that I was in as well, too. That, maybe applying a different way to do something because my way doesn't work all the time, and being open to feedback, I think is huge because not only is that like an athlete thing, it's also in the workspace as well. Like, I think being that person that's not Mrs. Know-it-all,
Right.
definitely takes you a long way as well because I think you have to listen more than you speak. Because ultimately listening to people, you hear gems, you hear how you can apply things to your life. Because like I said earlier, everybody's road to success is different. But when you learn from other people that have not only been in your shoes or going where you want to go, you really have to sit back and take that all in and say, you know what? They know something that I don't know. Let me listen, let me apply, and then I know I'll be great moving forward.
That's good. That's good. It's so funny you shared that because I just had an opportunity a couple days ago, a group that I speak to through the court system here locally. I talked to them very briefly about being able to receive information. Now, I'll be honest, I'm guilty of being that one that used to say, oh, this generation don't listen. And then you live long enough, you say, well, adults are doing it too. Like adults don't want to listen or they don't feel like they can receive information from other people. But I love sharing this awesome quote by the great John Wooden, who I believe coached at UCLA. John Wooden said, it's what you learn after you know it all that
Yeah.
counts.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that's an awesome quote because so often people get in that, you can't tell me nothing, or I know this, or I know that. And I think I always teach leadership, and I believe an awesome leader is always open to receiving information,
Very
even
true.
from their team. And so I appreciate you for sharing that.
Of
So
course.
after you after you leave Iona, you go on to play internationally, I believe, right?
Yep, I did.
Tell
I
us about that experience.
Yeah, I played in Puerto Rico. It was great. I loved being in that league. We had a couple WNBA players in the league when I played, which was great. Another opportunity to showcase your talent, your hard work after 4 years of playing in college. Ultimately, I felt like I made it. Like I literally could say I went to college for
Good.
4 years. I got a scholarship. My parents didn't have to pay that. I lived out my dream of playing overseas. I don't know what else is next. Like, and it's sad to say, like, as you get older and you kind of face reality, like, I feel like my WNBA dreams had dimmered, but I wasn't defeated. And I think that was a great part about it. Like, I just pivoted and I looked at it like that, like, hey, I had this dream of mine that I wanted to play in the WNBA, but it's okay because I pivot and now I'm able to play overseas. And then, I thought, well, okay, well, I won't be playing overseas for the rest of my life. So what's my next pivot? And that's always how I kind of got myself through different adversity and different situations.
Okay. So how do you end up at your own coaching job? How does that you transition from playing to ending up coaching?
Yep. So once I finished playing, I actually went back to school to finish up my master's. Like I said, I kind of pride myself on continuing to grow and continuing to learn. During that time, I worked at Madison Square Garden, in the community relations department, which was great because it gave me excuse me, it gave me training inside the field that I was getting my master's in. So I
Okay.
was like, this is a direct correlation. I'm like, it's a no-brainer. Great experience for me. And as I was doing that internship at Madison Square Garden, I then had got a call from my former coach who was taking a job at Seton Hall. And him and I
Wow.
had kept into contact, throughout the years. Like I always checked in to see how he was doing, check on, see how the younger teams were doing. And then he's like, Marissa, hey, I got this job. I couldn't think of anybody else to come with me. Would you come? And I was like, really sitting there contemplating, like, did I want to leave MSG? Like, I really enjoyed my job. I love being intentional with the youth. I'm in the community. I saw bigger and better things for me ahead, so I was like, I don't know if I wanted to get into coaching. But because I really cared about him and the fact that he really cared about me, I'm like, you know what, I'm gonna take this leap of faith and I'm gonna go down this journey with someone that I trust and know that's going to do a great job. And it was honestly the best decision I made.
That's good. That's good. So prior to getting that offer, whether it was playing internationally or even in college, had you ever thought about ever coaching?
No, I did not. And it's so funny because one of my AU coaches used to always say that I was going to be a coach because I was so vocal. I was a leader. Like, I didn't back down to anybody. Like, he just soared in me. And he was like, Marissa, you're going to be a coach one day. And I used to like brush it off. You're young. You're like, you think you know everything. So you're like, no, I'm going to play in the WNBA. Like, I'm not going to coach. And then fast forward, it's crazy how God works magic to see that, I coached for 9 seasons and I loved every moment of it.
That's good. That's good. That's good. Was there a big transition for you being able to, I hear at different athletes, some deal with it, some don't, transitioning from playing the game to now teaching the game?
Oh, definitely. I think my first 2 to 3 years of coaching was so difficult for me because I wanted to play so bad. Like I still had so much basketball left in me. So like I used to hop in and practice. Like I just knew like I was reliving my hoop dreams. But ultimately, like it honestly was a humbling situation as well too, because it made me think about like, okay, well, now I'm viewed as this coach and I am pouring into, younger girls and they're looking at me for advice. So I have to give my all now. Like I have to let go of those hoop dreams that I once had and really be intentional and create a space where, coaching is at the forefront and me giving game and, giving opportunities for the girls to learn and to grow. And I didn't think that I could do that if I was still holding on to something that was no longer realistic for me anymore.
Good. That's good. So, from your career as a coach, how do you end up getting the opportunity that you now have with overtime?
So after my 9th season, I was just like, you know what? I want to do something different. Like I kind of felt like I was in a stagnant place. And it wasn't because of the setting. Like I loved being at Seton Hall. I loved everyone that I worked with. The administration was great. The girls were amazing throughout the years. I just wanted something more for myself. I wanted to start a family. I'm a mom now. My son is 5 months.
Congrats.
So thank you so much. So literally, like I just had a shift of mindset. And I knew I wanted to stay in sports. I knew I wanted to still stay around the game. I saw that overtime had an opportunity open. And the great part about that is not that the opportunity was open, but I was able to lean on people that I had met in the past through networking events or honestly just being a good person. And a friend of a friend was working at overtime. He connected us. She gave me pointers and insight on the business, about the opportunity that was available. And I kind of seek the opportunity and it landed in my lap. And this is honestly going into my 3rd year. And it's been great that I'm able to still be around the game, but not in a coaching capacity.
That's good. That's good. So first, I want to ask for those maybe watching, how new is the overtime, or how old is the overtime platform?
So this Overtime Elite is actually fairly new. This is going into season 4 for Overtime Elite, which is a organization that is media and content company based for Overtime, but Overtime Elite actually houses the athletes that are 14 to 19-year olds that play on a very, very high level, that are on a different demand and schedule. And the space is just so innovative and creative. And what I love about Overtime is that they are current with everything that's going on in the basketball ecosystem. And I love that the group of young men that we have here, they all focus, they're all like-minded, they all have aspirations to play high-level college basketball or go to the pros. We've had a couple boys in the NBA the last couple of seasons, and it's great to just see their growth and just the platform growing. The fact that we have year after year guys going to college, I think is amazing. And then the NBA is just a cherry on top.
All right. So in your position, what do you have to do as a director of player relations, correct?
Correct.
What does that position consist of?
So I deal with all our players' off-court obligations. Their athlete experience is something that's key for me. So onboarding the players and their families, getting them acquainted with Overtime and what we offer and all the things that we have for our players daily. I look at myself as like a dot connector with all the departments within the building, which is great. And also from like a player relations side to make sure that the players are having a great experience. And that is through programming. So it is through our life skills program where we speak about financial literacy, mental health, player well-being, life after basketball. And this is through different programmings, guest speakers, field trips, events. So all of those things that make the well-rounded basketball player. And I love that part of it because I've been down that journey. And I love that I'm able to teach and apply and bring in people that can help our players really understand what it is life outside of basketball.
That's good. And I think that's so awesome because we had opportunity to talk very briefly before, we got into the interview. And so again, that is what my heart is with Out and Up, just making sure our young people are well-rounded so that
Yeah.
if they make it to the highest level, good. If you make it to the pros, good, but there is still life outside of the sport. And so
Correct.
making sure, my career being in detention, I ran into so many young athletes or even people would tell me about other people that were in the facilities that I worked in would say, man, Rogers, that person was the best football player. That person was the best basketball player in town. And because of bad decisions or, not having plans outside of sport, they found themselves inside the system and, going on to do years and years and, in jail or in prison. So I think it's awesome what Overtime is doing. I am fairly new over the last couple of years, blessed to know the young ladies from Paterson, New Jersey back home in the twin backcourt. So,
Me and
I was
Maya.
actually I was able to have Mia and Maya on before their freshman year at Morris Catholic.
No way.
Yeah, so I had them on before their freshman year, and so I've been blessed to see them at the Wall Classic here in North Carolina the last 2 years. So been able to see them, take pictures with them and their father DJ.
Thank you.
So awesome, awesome family. I just appreciate them and the love that they show anytime they come in town. Actually, looking forward to hopefully catching them next month at Overtime. This will be the first time that I've been to an event, but I hope to make it to Georgia to actually catch them. And then we don't know the schedule yet, but hopefully they'll be back here to three-peat here at the Wall Classic this year. We'll see.
Very
But
true. That's the nice part about Overtime, that I love that we are tapping into the girls space as well too, and giving girls that same opportunity. As I mentioned earlier, women's sports is growing, and to give those platforms and give girls a voice, I think is amazing because I wish I had those things growing up. And that honestly makes you work harder, like to pour into girls even more because they have what you didn't have. And instead of being
yes,
envious or jealous, you're like applauding it. You want to see it win, you want to see it grow. And I just love, like I said, the space that Overtime has created for these young ladies, because they'll walk away from this event next month, not only better basketball players, but also with knowledge about NIL and how business works and how they can
right.
maximize this space the most. And I love that for women's sports.
Yes, yes. I've definitely just again watching them and having some several awesome guests. Young lady from the area that is now at Virginia State, Bella Fauntleroy, which is now at Baylor. She's going into, I believe, her junior year. Just some awesome guests I've had. I really, just, over the years, have grown my love for the sport. And I said it's so funny that me and Maya just committed to Tennessee. And my years growing up, there was a space where I really was in the women's basketball and those Pat Summit days at Tennessee, Tamika's Holesclaw and Candace Park, and the list goes on with Tennessee. I was a fan of Tennessee. So when I saw they made that choice, I was like, I guess I'm a Tennessee fan again. Because, just pulling for the young ladies from back home, just seeing the awesome things that they're doing. So yes, like you said, it's also what overtime is doing, moving on with overtime select and everything. And I hope to be a part of, catching that next month. Want to grab my young ones and jump in the vehicle and hopefully catch some games. So it's
Perfect.
awesome what you all are doing that overtime. I think it's just great that these players have these outlets now. Like you said, different than maybe when we were in school. Things have grown so much. So I think it's awesome. I think it's awesome. So I want to ask you some questions I always ask as I wrap it up. For the young athlete listening, how important is it to have positive people in your circle?
Oh, I think it's key. I think, and I was going to mention this earlier as well too, like having a mentor and having someone you look up to, I think is huge, because if you see someone doing well, and they're positive, you want to copy that, you want to mimic it. And it's honestly contagious, right? Good energy is contagious, right? When people are doing the right thing, it's contagious. So
Yes.
surround yourself around like-minded people or great energy people. It's only going to carry over to yourself.
All right, that's awesome. And so, as we wrap it up, Marissa, again, I appreciate you taking time to just tell us about your journey. And again, the goal is just to continue presenting guests to those that get a chance to watch. Awesome athletes like yourself who have gone on and the impact that you're still having on the sport outside of playing the game. And so, I just thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to join
Of
us. And we're
course.
going to go into our last question. Who or what is it that inspires you most in life?
My son. Being a mom changed me completely. I look at life different. I want more. I want better for him. I want to provide all the things for him that I wasn't able to have. But also too, being in this space of at overtime and working with young men every day, like it honestly like warms my heart to know that like the next generation that is coming is in good hands. Like, and I want my son to be in that setting, and I want him to have aspirations to be great. And even if it's not in sports, like just knowing that there's knowledge out here and there's opportunities for young men that, will help build and grow them to be great men, and one day he is going to become a great husband. And a father, and all of those things I would love for my kids. So for me, he is the driving force behind everything I do now. I love it. It's so funny because every day I leave him, I pray when I'm on my way to work, and it's for different things. But ultimately, it's for him to be a great person and to honestly be out of harm's way, and know that anything that he wants to obtain, that he can, because his mom is right behind him, being his biggest supporter.
That's good. That's good. I appreciate you. Before we close out, we normally end with that question. But for the young athlete watching, what advice can you give them for really getting the best out of themselves, whether it's in the game or even in life? What's some final advice you can give the young athlete?
For young athletes, I say never stop learning. Like always put yourself in positions to learn. Like I mentioned earlier, like work hard, like continue to work hard, continue to step outside your comfort zone. Don't box yourself in. Like there's so many people out in this world that are willing to help. But closed mouths don't get fed. So with that being said, like if you're interested in something, go for it. If you want to connect with someone, reach out to them via email. If you want to, be like someone or you admire someone, like study them, see what they've done, like learn their journey, and understand that, I would bet that, their journey wasn't as easy as it may seem where their final destination is. And ultimately too, for like young athletes, just keeping focus. Like I think with social media and phones and television, like it's so easy to lose focus. But sometimes like just taking that moment to lock in and really appreciate those one that have helped you along the way, that are going to help you when you get to where you want to go. But lastly, because you know that's what you want to do, and it's something that drives and it builds you daily. So when you combine all three of those things, greatness is in your future for sure.
That's good. Well, thanks again for joining us,
Of course.
Marissa. I appreciate you. I appreciate you. You all watching, you know I say it every show. It is good to be great in the sport that you're playing, but it's even better to be great in life. So I just ask that you'll take this awesome information, share it with the young athlete that you may know. If you're a young athlete and you're watching, you have to be intentional in applying this information. It is only then that you'll be able to use it to move on into your greatness. So again, we thank you for joining us. Continue to join us as we continue to go out and up. Have a great one. We'll see you next episode.
Thank you.